If you're someone who would like to create content, but you're not because you're nervous about speaking, then definitely follow me. I do a lot of content on using speaking skills in social media, and also the psychological and mindset pieces that are necessary for taking the risk of showing up and speaking. And because both are necessary, the mindset shift is important, but the technical skill set for speaking is also really useful. But when it comes right down to it, my speaking skills training, underneath all of the top level skill set and even mindset pieces, on top of the technical aspects of speaking skills, is the underlying need for self-esteem and for shifting the parts of ourselves that don't believe we have value or don't believe that we should take up space. Everyone's story is needed. There's someone out in the world who needs to hear your experience, who would benefit or be inspired by or feel not alone if they heard you telling your story. And I believe it's true for everyone. As I'm a person with an ADHD-like brain, and I am not capable of having one pointed focus. I'm no longer under the illusion that that is the only way or even the best way to live in life or to create content. So instead, my alternative is to not just have a niche or one particular topic that we speak about, but to use my lily pad model to identify the varying, movable, changing, and sometimes overlapped lily pads that form the basis of our past experience, that informs our story and what we have to share with the world. And I like lily pads more than content pillars because lily pads are so much more organic, because they move with the water, because they overlap, because some are small and some are big, because they can change their location so that the one that's in the center, the primary one, might be different. If you have multiple interests and multiple content areas where you can bring value, they are probably relatable to each other, because guess what? There's something in common, and that something in common is you. I'm going to give you an example of my lily pads. Speaking skills, communication skills, artful aging, ADHD, mastery. How do we be the best we can be? How do we make the most of all the gifts we've been given? Physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Living outside of the box, which I've done in many ways as a 15-year homeschooling parent who organizes people coming together for that purpose. Someone who's lived in an RV for 13 months. Someone who's transplanted from Canada to the US. I mean, I have so many stories, as I know you do, and each of those stories forms the basis of a lily pad. These lily pads move in and out, and depending on what it is that I have on offer, I might focus on one or more. For example, in my ADHD content, I might talk about ADHD and how some of the speaking skills, like using pause, are especially powerful for someone who has an ADHD-like brain and might trip over all the thoughts coming in at the same time, and how using a speaking skill like pause or being conscious of reducing the number of empty words in our presentation can help an ADHD-like brain shift into nervous system regulation. So that's an example of speaking skills content and ADHD content, or lily pads, overlapped. I might talk about how changing the narrative on aging is necessary but impacted by the fact that many women are afraid to take up space and to show up and hold the power that's required when you speak in front of an audience, because we've been conditioned to shrink back or to not show ourselves or to put someone else ahead of us, stand behind other people. That's an example of my lily pads of take up space, find your story, share your voice, build the confidence and the mastery to bring your message to the world, because it's needed to change the narrative on aging. So that's an example of my artful aging lily pad overlapping with my speaking skills lily pad. And I hold that whatever your lily pads, whatever your interest, whatever your expertise, your passion, your gifts, your story, when you break it into lily pads, you're going to be able to interrelate them and relate them to each other. I don't know what's with trolls. Do people not have better things to do with their time? I mean, I have so many things I want to do with this life, with the hours in the day that are so limited. I feel I could always use 3 times more hours to do all the things that I want to do for my own benefit, for my own bliss, and for the benefit of the people I love, to serve the communities, to make a positive difference in the world. How in the world do people have time to do stupid trolling on social media? Oh, I feel sorry for them. I used to just let people troll, and then I decided that life is too short, and the impact that we have on each other is so huge that I just don't allow it anymore. Because what we say and do impacts the world. So if you come into someone's live and you say something positive to them, or you give a shout out to someone else in the group, or someone who's made a comment, and you offer something positive, you change the world in a spiraled up direction in a little way. But if you come in and you say something that is of low value or worse, you're taking the world down a little bit. We're impacted by each other. And so even the smallest positive act of generosity, whether it's a smile or a supportive comment, changes the world. And by the same token, a negative, a crude, a meaningless, a vapid, I don't know how you pronounce that word, comment or gesture lowers the world. It lowers our collective experience. So now I'm pretty quick to block people if I think that their intention is not to bring some kind of value or positivity. It's meaningful because what you say, amen, sister, or you have a picture of something that I think is positive in your profile, or I look on your bio and it says something about some impact that you're wanting for the world that's positive. That changes me. I'm impacted by that. Do consider how you're showing up in the world, and take heart if you are one of the many people who feels they're not doing enough. There's so much happening in the world, and I know it's very easy to put ourselves through or to feel like we should be doing more. If you're someone who is showing up in the world and bringing even the smallest piece of positivity to another person, starting from right where you're sitting right now, you're changing the world with the smallest of comments, or the tiniest gesture of generosity, or a positive and supportive word. Even with your thoughts, I believe you're changing the world. So pay attention and be meticulous about your actions and your words. Be impeccable, even if it's in the smallest of ways, starting with right where you are, because the world needs you. The world needs us. The world needs our generosity and our positivity and our support.